Uh, Very dear students and my colleagues and the viewers worldwide, once again, very warm welcome to Dr. Zia Ahmed YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to discuss with my students a very short poem written by Edgar Allan Poe. I shall be devising ways how to write its critical appreciation, what are the important things in it, and how one can write it with respect to the examination point of view in order to gain the plausible marks. So for this purpose, first of all, let me show you the title. The title is here, The Critical Appreciation of Poe's poem Eldorado. So that is the poem included in most of the syllabi of BS English under the module American Literature. So here is Poe's poem Eldorado. Let's enter into the poem and see what does the poem has for us. But first of all, the title needs to be talked about. Eldorado is a Spanish word which means the gold. I mean, the kind of costly metal which is regarded in Asia, especially with reference to the ornaments which the men and women of Asia wear, and so that's considered to be the symbol of wealth. So everybody wants to achieve it as soon as possible. But it's not about South Asian craze for gold. It is about the investigation, search, and trying to find out and explore the kind of city, mythical city or fabulous city, which possibly had the gold in it. And people were looking for it again and again. Different types of people experimented in different ways. So, this is the poem about this Eldorado, the gold. So let us see what other important aspects we can talk about with reference to the critical appreciation of the poem. First of all, we need to know about the poet. Poet, for example, is the person who is Edgar Allan Poe, and everybody knows that he is an American poet. He had been working as an editor of certain literary, magazines, non-literary magazines as well. We can find the names of these magazines quite easily on the internet. And similarly, has been a literary critic as well. So, multi-dimensional personality, literary personality. He was born in 1809 in Boston, United States, and he became famous in America with respect to his short stories and modern poetry, with a special tangent flavor of Americanism, American poetry, American literature, or what can say the recognition of genre of American literature is there, and that person contributed a lot into that. So it was the poetry and the short stories by him which were crispy, which were short, which were quick and easy to read, and carried one purpose in them. The writing which he has done, especially in poetry, can be called romanticism in the United States. As, for example, Wordsworth rebelled against the in phraseology and scholarship of the difficult language and topics by the classical poets and presented a common man's poetry which could be read by anyone, and possibly it contained commentaries, common words, and common language, as Wordsworth would say. So similar type of romanticism, if we see, if it was ever available in the United States, it was in the writing of Edgar Allan Poe. So Poe is not going to be a common person, common poet. Well, neither of the literary persons should be called or termed as common, but Poe has played a big part in making the American literature or the romanticism in America. So he deserves a special place in American literature. Most of his short stories contain mysterious elements and the horror elements in it in order to make them more nearer to the people and their feelings. He writes the facts and fiction in such a way that the line is difficult to be drawn between facts and fiction. Fact seems to be mingling with fiction, and fiction seems to be mingling with facts. In fact, he was a talented person, and that is why just at the age of 13, he wrote his first poem. He joined military as well and continued to edit many magazines for the sake of his livelihood. So that is Edgar Allan Poe, and Edgar Allan Poe is really a fantastic poet that we will be talking and discussing with reference to him. Poe, how, for example, he should be recognized with respect to his creations and productions, like it is Tamerlane and other poems which he wrote that carries a little bit of Asiatic flavor in that. Al Arif, for example, again was another similar type of poem. The Raven is the poem which carried special recognition by the American people and world over. Annabel Lee is in the same way is a very beautiful poem The Bells, and then The Black Cat and The Telltale Heart are the short stories by him which won the hearts of the people and made him famous all over the world. And he also wrote The Fall of the House of Usher. So these are some of the important writings by him, which place him among the highest ranking poets, novelists, short story writers of American literature. So this is what the poet is there. And now let us proceed again in order to find out and see what is the poem like we are going to discuss today. The poem is having many parts in it, but every part is linked up with some common theme, and that's the theme of love, the benefits or the gifts of love, and then it comes the drawbacks and the punishments whoever involves in love. So it's basically a love poem, reminding all of us of the poem of Keats, that is La Belle Dame Sans Mercy, and that was written in the same fashion, and same is the case here. That we will be really enjoying it very much. But then today's poem is not about Annabel Lee. Today's poem is going to be about Eldorado. Eldorado poem is again very beautiful one, and it's short one, but it talks about the common people's thinking that America is a land where the opportunities are there. In fact, there was no golden fleece and there was no golden city inside America which people wanted to reach. It was actually the land of opportunities. I mean, people thought if they go to America, they will be able to earn a lot, they will be able to get a lot of wealth, and they will be able to become famous, and they will be able to become, rich in this world and have a name with that. And that is why people thought this a kind of fable about America, that there's a city that can be called a golden city. And through that, the wishes and the desires of people have been reflected in the poem. So let's proceed in the poem and see what the poem is like. As you see, here is Eldorado, and on the picture I can show you the golden city. As I said already, that the Eldorado word means the gold. This poem was published in 1849. It's really a very classic type of story because the start of the poem is also made in the same sense as most of the classic stories begin. And as in most of the fabulous stories, we need to hear about the cave of Ali Baba and then the search for the gold and something like that. That was going to be a classic story, but modernized in context of USA. It talks about the human efforts that the human beings make in order to look for and find out if there is any kind of thing they can succeed in. But it's metaphorical. It can be anything in which human beings want to succeed and make efforts. But alongside that positive side, there is the negative side also reflected. That's the greed, that in order to search for this kind of wealth, many people lost their lives and many people lost their name and fame and ultimately became psychological sick as well. But then it is reflective of the search of human beings for some greater things of the world. And perhaps this is a very search which has made the many territories of the world discovered, mapped, and then presented to the people in a very easy manner. That was the spirit of investigation that brought the Europeans outside, and America was discovered, India was discovered, and many other parts of the world were discovered. So the story not only reflects the efforts of human beings for the positive discoveries, for becoming rich and famous, it also reflects the negative human characteristics of being greedy person. It is the it is about the American mythical city or the land which is thought of the some people would say it's a land available somewhere inside America, but it's not definitely. But it was fabulously made available, mythically made available. So this is a kind of myth about USA that if you enter there, definitely you will be able to enter into the city of gold and become famous and rich as well. Possibly some of the people have been able to realize this dream, but most of them have not been able to do so. In this poem, we find one knight. It goes to talk about tales of knights, as in the past time, the classic stories and the poems used to be about the tales regarding the knights. And the knight is in search of the city of gold. In Keats' poetry, the poem Love, Dance, and Mercy, the knight was in search of some beautiful woman. And here it is the gold. But then both of the things can be compared together. A beautiful woman is not less than a gold if she loves you, and then the city of gold is just like looking for some beautiful woman. So, in one way or the other, the metaphor is related to the classic style of writing of the poetry in the modern way as relating it to the knight's tale as well. But you see, the search of this knight finds out nothing other than a shadow. And that shadow is lifeless, definitely. It is black as well, it's not bright at all, and it is most of the time related to the death or the end of life also. So, this is the kind of gist of the story or the introduction of the story of this poem that should be written when the students are writing their critical appreciation. So first it was the poet, the placement of the poet, and then it's the introduction of the poem. And next, let's proceed for the other parts of the poem. And the poem has been divided by certain parts so that we can make us understand very well. So, in the same way, the parts of the poem should be made, and then these should be appreciated upon, talked about, discussed about different aspects, maybe talked about with these lines. For example, the first part of the poem is about the night, as the picture also shows. Gaily be delight, a gallant knight, in sunshine and in shadow, had journeyed long, singing a song in search of Eldorado. So the very small and brief words have been used in order to convey the idea of the classiness of the poem, that it was a beautifully well decorated and powerful knight who was looking for something, and he was looking for Eldorado, the place, the golden place, and he has been traveling through sunshine and shadow. That means in the day also, during the nights also he has been traveling, and also means during the easy ways and during the difficult ways. He has been making a long journey, but so far he's happy because he was singing the song as well and continuing his search also. So the poem is introduced with the introduction of the night to let us know what is the purpose of the night and how much difficulties and how much ease and comfort he has. On his journey, he has been singing for a very long time. He has been trying to reach the city of Eldorado. So the search of the night is for the city of Eldorado. Night has been presented in a very beautiful way, and then his mission has been told to us. The second part of the poem talks about, but he grew old, this night so bold. Over his heart a shadow fell as he found no spot of ground that looked like Eldorado. So then the very next stanza, the poet was to talk about the failure or the disappointment of the knight, because although he was a very bold type of knight, in his search, long search, he became old person, not a young person at all. And he couldn't find the city of Eldorado, and as a result, he was disappointed. A shadow falls on his heart. So the ambitiousness of the knight is replaced with shadow because he was unable to find any ground, any spot, any mark of even that which he was finding out. So looking for the gold, city of gold, is shown here to be an impossibility. The knight grew old in his search for that, although he was very young, bold, and beautiful, well decorated, but he could not find that. And disappointment started to grow on his heart. So the second stanza talks about the disappointment of the knight. And definitely the kind of change has been shown in the first stanza. It was all bright, it was all ambitiousness. In the second stanza, it is going to be the shadow or the disappointment which is coming to the knight. And why so? Because he was unable to spot even a little thing, even a little landmark, or even any indication which could lead him to the city of Eldorado. Then comes part 3 or stanza 3 of the poem. Poet says, and as his strength failed him at length, he met a pilgrim's shadow. Shadow said he, where can it be, the land of Eldorado? And here's the part where the mysterious element enters, because mysterious element or the myths used to be the part of the classic stories as well. So here is again a pilgrim's shadow, the shadow which is moving about. Now it appears that pilgrim's shadow is somebody else. No, it's not. Actually, it is the shadow of the knight himself. Nobody is present on his way. And he was failing in his strength, and that is why he prayed to his spiritual forces and he asked his own shadow, or whatever the shadow, maybe it's there. He puts a question to it that where is the land of Eldorado? And the shadow is going to answer to him, and that answer will be definitely very, very alarming and very lesson teaching as well. So the third stanza tells us about the reversion, about the turning, or about the kind of diversion of the knight towards the spiritual or mythical forces. Or mystical forces to aid him in his mission, because he was so much disappointed, and that shows to the kind of mythical or supernatural element in the poetry of this poet. Though the shadow is, if seen in the modern concept, the shadow is not going to be the shadow which travels automatically. It may be something relevant to the darkness, or it could be some evil force, it could be some dark force, it could be the end of life as well, but it can be the shadow of the knight himself. So the part 4 is there, and the shadow replies, the answer comes to the knight. Over the mountains of the moon. So if you want to look for the land Eldorado, then you can look it, going to the mountains, and then the mountains which are famous with respect to the moon mountains, and then you can go to the Valley of Shadows. This is the very end, the destination, the Valley of Shadows. Valley of Death, Valley of Shadows, or the people, when they die, they possibly go into such a valley, as it is the concept given in classical writings, that they enter into the place where human beings or the living bodies are not present, just shadows are present, just souls and spirits are present. So the shadow advised him, write boldly, write. The shade replied, you continue to write, do not stop it. If you seek for Eldorado, if you want to go there, then ultimately you will have to go to the Valley of the Shadows. So in living life, it's not available. It can be found only after death. So the kind of desire of human beings cannot be fulfilled during the lifetime. The desires are so many. Even if you make efforts, the efforts are encouraged, but then all desires cannot be fulfilled. All desires to find out the city of gold, all desire to get riches, fame, these cannot be possibly achieved in one life. So that is why it's being told to us that you can find this thing only in the shadows, right? So this is the whole poem, and I shall be talking to my people, to my audience in some different ways as well, in order to look at the poem. So the whole poem has been discussed by us, but then we need also to talk about different other aspects of the poem. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the stylistic details which are present there inside the poem. For example, look at this slide. It says punctuation has been used by the poet in a very very elaborate manner. For example, if we just look at this last slide, you can see that the inverted commas are there, the commas, and then the dash is also there, the kind of exclamation mark is also there. So in this way, many of the lines of the poem show that there is a lot of use of punctuation, especially that of the dashes. So punctuation is added in order to give pauses, or in order to give explanations, or in order to attract the attention, or to quote directly what is being said by one thing or the other. The poem, from its style, seems to be totally a narrative poem, where the story is being told, where the things are being talked about in such a way as if it's a story. So, like a ballad, the story is being told in the poem. The poem is a narrative poem. A narrator tells about the things which are happening in the poem. It's a fable poem because fabulously, land of gold may be existing, otherwise it's not. Sir Walter Raleigh also wrote this type of poem about the search of gold, and because at that time, 1849 in California, there was a gold rush movement going on, and people were in search of that. Probably to reflect this, the poem has been written by the poet. This poem is altogether four stanza, as every stanza has 60 lines, and the rhyme scheme, as we can see, is AAB, then CCB. Then repetition of certain words has been carried out by the poet again and again to strengthen and to connect the lines, and repetition with the word shadow and then Eldorado again and again. We can conclude the poem by thinking about the imagery which is present in this poem, by saying that beautiful imagery has been used. The imagery of the mountain, moon mountain is there. Then secondly, shade images there, and the biblical images have been also talked about in that human beings will continue to look for something which may give them peace, but ultimately they will turn to the valley of shadows, that is the death valley. This poem also reminds us of the death, which will definitely come to us. And it's a moral poem also because it talks about the moral lesson that your desires should be in control. Otherwise, excessive desires can lead you to your death valley, and there will be no more possibility of that. Pilgrims Shadow is another image, which is definitely a very powerful image, which goes to show the other side of the night. On the one hand, the living night is there, but he will convert into that shadow of the dead person. In that way, everything added makes the poem very beautiful. We can therefore conclude that this is a beautiful poem by the poet, that is Edgar Allan Poe. And in this poem, he has talked about a number of good things. In first stanza, he conveys his message very beautifully. And by using all these techniques he has talked about, he's given us that we are able to find out the real meaning or the theme which is present here. That is the search of man for the golden land, or for the beauty, for the riches, for the fame, for the power. But ultimately, the lesson is that nobody can obtain it as easily as possible. So a lot of work is to be done. So that was the poem which we term as Eldorado by Edgar Allan Poe. Hopefully, I have been able to convey the kind of method with which the critical appreciation can be created in 4 to 5 steps. The slides can be used, and the other materials on internet and the daily life may be added into that. to make it even more powerful and vigorous. So thank you for watching. Hope to see you in some next video.